My wife's best friend has been an absolute nightmare. I'm talking about trying to ruin our marriage, trying to break us up, all because she doesn't like me. Well, the final straw came very swiftly when she decides to move just a few houses away from us and make our life a nightmare. And my wife just doesn't seem to have my back. When I was still a teenager, I used to believe that it was only in the movies that the bad guy would try to break another person's home. And it would have felt staged to me if it happened in real life, to anybody around me, but after it happened to me and I passed through all that I did, I now believe that it does not just happen in the movies. And we should all be protective of our homes because you can never tell who doesn't want to see you happy. My wife Emily. We've been married for 6 years. I met Emily right after I finished college, but she was still in there. We were two lovebirds, and anybody who came across us had to be jealous in some sort of way. At that time, Emily was so beautiful. Everything about she had a way of drawing people close to her. It was either the way she spoke, the way she laughed, smiled, or even walked. There was just something about her that stood out for everybody she met, and as for me, I loved everything about her. She had a best friend, Laura, who was always around her, and I thought it was so sweet to see them always just hanging out with each other and doing things together. During the first month that I started going out with Emily, I noticed that Laura, she was so protective. It was almost like Laura did not want to be around Emily, and I understood they've been friends for 23 years. I even believed it was a very normal thing for Laura to act that way because I had the intention of getting married to Emily, and she must have felt really hurt to know that her best friend was not going to be oh so close anymore. But after 6 years and my knowledge of who Laura really was, I understood why she acted that way. About a year after Emily and I got married, Laura got married too. We were both happy for her, and in less than a year, she gave birth to her first child, within 6 years. Emily and I were married, and Laura had 3 children, a boy and 2 girls. The first few months of my marriage with Emily was difficult because Emily had the habit of telling Laura everything that happened between us, and I was not really comfortable with it. And whenever I warned her against it, she'd just say it's because I did not have a best friend, and she felt I did not understand what that bond even felt like. I knew she loved her best friend, but a third party in our marriage was a big no-no. It was so bad that even if we had a little disagreement, our intimacy was hot, she'd get out of bed and tell Laura about it in the same minute. And she kept going on like that until something happened. That day, we had an argument about having children, and in the heat of the argument, Emily called Laura, as usual, to tell her what I have just said about having kids. And at this point, Laura asked Emily to divorce me, move in with her, and the craziest thing was that she wasn't even joking. When Emily heard it, she thought Laura was messing with her, and when she told me, I thought she was joking too. But not until Laura began to send her numbers of good lawyers in the state that would help with our divorce. The funny thing was, we were only married for 9 months by the time this incident happened, and Laura was already engaged and planning her wedding. That same evening, as if sending Emily a list of lawyers wasn't enough, Laura drove to our home, asked Emily to pack her things so she could stay with her until the divorce papers went through. Then she abused me and said I didn't even deserve her friend because I was a manipulator, and in her words, and I quote you, by the time she was done with me, I'd regret trying to hurt Emily. It was crazy, because I was never going to try to hurt Emily in any way. I only told her we could try having kids after 2 years, but Emily said she wasn't ready, and we, could only have children when she's ready. This was the only cause of our argument, and this particular situation almost ruined our relationship because Emily, she left the house and returned just after 3 days. because of the terrible things Laura had put in her head about me. But I was glad all this happened, because Emily understood the implication of listening to a third party, and she saw how it could just destroy a marriage. And since that day, she stopped telling Laura every single thing. When Emily returned home, we settled, and Laura apologized to us. And she claimed she did all that because she was trying to protect her best friend from getting hurt, and it was not her intention to actually break us up. She pulled the emotional card, and we believed her, and things went back to the way it used to be between the three of us. To be honest, after the whole incident, I was no longer comfortable with Laura being close to Emily, or me. I saw it as a major red flag for her to recommend divorce as the first thing, the moment her friend called her to complain. I wanted Emily to reduce the way they hung out or even visited each other's house, but she convinced me that Laura was only being protective and there was nothing for me to worry about. Now that I write this, I wish I stood my ground and did not listen to Emily. Maybe things would have turned out to be as disastrous as they were. The event passed, but Emily learned her lesson, and our marriage became a two-person thing. Just between Emily and I, and she stopped telling Laura anything that concerned us, as it was a third party and it's out of the way. We're now able to live a happy life for 6 years. We were each other's first best friends, and we did almost everything as a couple, shopping together. During this time, we were ready to have our first kid. Emily and I, we were excited. I think it was out of excitement that we told Laura and a few friends at a family and friends dinner. They seemed to be happy for us. Well, everyone except for, Laura. And I realized this after she moved into the building right next to us. It was a Saturday. Emily and I were just relaxing at our house and trying to put the home in order when we heard a knock on the door. I went there, and it was Laura standing right there on the front porch with a wide grin. None of us was expecting her because she did not tell us she was coming, and when I asked her why she did not call just to inform us about her visit, she responded with, "That's no way to greet your new neighbor." Emily and I scratched our head in confusion because Laura lived about 7 miles north, and I didn't even understand how that made us neighbors. When she saw the confusion on our faces, she laughed and explained to us that she and her family just moved into the next building, and we were excited for her. Truth be told, I was not excited. It was Emily that was excited, and that's because I did not know if it was going to be a good thing for Laura to live next to us, especially after what happened some years ago. I knew Emily loved Laura, but I just did not understand why Laura thought it was a great idea to rent a house next to her best of friend. This would have been cool if they did it while they were 7 years old or as teenagers, but not for women who were married and had their own families to attend to. When Emily noticed I was uncomfortable, she just told me to shake it off and give Laura a second chance. I did, and in a couple of months the two families were used to having each other around. This alone made Emily so happy, and when I saw how happy she was, I decided just to let everything go and start on a fresh slate with Laura. I knew I was not always going to be at home, and I believed that hanging with Laura and her family on weekends was not going to be a harmful thing for me in any way. But oh boy, I was wrong. Getting close to Laura ruined me and my marriage in the most unexplainable way, and the funny thing is, we just never suspected that Laura was up to something. I guess I was too engrossed with planning these mini vacations, planning trips to the neighboring state, and trying to have fun with my new family. Well, we had just returned from a weekend mini vacation. I was at home that Sunday prepping for work the next day when I received a text message from an anonymous number. It read, "I know what you're doing with Laura, and I can't wait to tell Emily and the rest of the world how much of a terrible cheat and husband you are. When the message came in, I was quite confused because nothing was going on with me and Laura, and I've never cheated on Emily, so it did not make any sense. I didn't pay attention to it because I believed it was just somebody trying to play a prank on me. I ignored the message. Shortly after, another message came through from the same number telling me how the whole neighborhood would be disgusted to know that I could not keep my filthy, grubby hands and manhood off my wife's best friend. And that's when I began to get worried. I didn't know if it was right to tell Emily or not, and I didn't tell her because I thought it would be sensitive to her, especially since Laura was involved, but I didn't know that not telling Emily would be my first mistake. The anonymous text message did not stop coming, and even Emily noticed them, and when she asked about it, I told her there were messages from my work WhatsApp group, and she didn't mention it again. On a Tuesday, I was resting at home after work, waiting for Emily to return from grocery shopping so we could make dinner together, and the moment Emily returned, oh boy, all hell broke loose. She returned home, and as she got inside the house, she asked me if I was having an affair with Laura. The moment she did, my heart sank immediately, but I had to put myself together, and I told her it was nonsense to her just to think that I was having an affair with Laura. But she didn't believe me. She told me that in the course of shopping, she bumped into one of our neighbors, and that's how she heard the rumors. At that moment, I could not believe it was happening, and the anonymous messengers just went ahead to spread those rumors about me. I tried to convince Emily that they were all lies, but she laughed, showing me pictures of me and Laura in bed together. Laura holding my arm while we walked in to get to the mall, and another picture of me in our house with my shirt off. It was just a lot for me to take on at once. It was already difficult to convince Emily that I was not having an affair with Laura, and at the moment I had to convince her that I was not the one in the picture. To be honest, I was the person in all of the pictures, but I could swear on my late mother's grave that nothing was going on between me and Laura. And I didn't even know when those pictures were taken. The good thing was, Emily was calm enough to listen to me, because neither of us could believe what was happening. So I suggested that we heard it from the horse's mouth herself, Laura. And maybe then Emily would believe that I did not have anything and would never do anything with her best friend. We invited Laura to our home without her husband because we did not want things to blow up, as they already did. And Emily did the talking. She told Laura about the rumor spreading that she was having an affair with me, but she told Laura she simply did not believe it, and that's why she wanted to hear from Laura. To my greatest surprise, Laura said it was true that she was having an affair with me, but she didn't want to continue with it because she knew it would hurt Emily, and it wasn't right to. At the same time, she pulled her phone out of her bag and showed Emily text messages of the both of us going back and forth about our secret affair, and Laura telling me that she doesn't want to continue anymore. Wow. Actually, the text message made it look like I was pestering Laura to be my lover while she refuses. I was devastated, and I hated to see Emily look at me that way with tears rolling down her cheeks. Wow. I tried to explain to her that I was innocent. I even raised my voice at Laura to tell the truth. But the moment I did, she began to cry, and it made me look like I was trying to cover up for something I did not do. Emily asked me to explain the pictures if I claimed that the message was fake. No matter how much I tried to explain it, it did not make sense to her, because there was a shirtless picture of me in the bed, with Laura, who had a towel tied around her chest. Even though I was asleep in all the photos, Emily did not want to believe that I was framed. As for the pictures of Laura holding my arm and laughing, I remember that I was taking a day off that day, and Laura came to ask me if I could drive her to the mall to get a couple of things. I didn't have a reason to turn her down, so I drove her to the mall, and those pictures were obviously taken by somebody else. The images made it look like Laura was having a good time with me, and it made us look like a couple. Then for the shirtless picture on my bed, I remember that day. Emily was not home and Laura brought some pastries that she baked for us. I took my share, and the next thing I remember, I was waking up in the bed without my shirt. It was at that moment that I realized that Laura, she must have spiked my brownies. Taken me to my bed, took off my shirt, and then she took the pictures to make it look like we had the sex. I remembered all of this, and I explained it to Emily, but she told me to face that she did not believe me. What's up, guys? Mr. Reddito here. We find ourselves in one messed up situation. I have 4 updates. We're going to jump into the first one, but first, if you're not subscribed, guys, just click that button for daily videos. Here's update number 1. Seeing that Emily did not believe me, it hurt me so much. I knew the evidence she had seen was enough to convince her not to believe, and she felt betrayed to find out that I was cheating on her with her best of friend. The truth is, I wasn't. I think I've said that over and over, and I didn't even understand the kind of game Laura was playing with us. After I kicked Laura out of her house, I begged Emily to give me the opportunity to prove that I was innocent and show her that Laura was just trying to tear us apart. I reminded her how Laura tried to break us apart with the incident that happened years ago, and I was certain that Laura did not want Emily to be happy. Though Emily was heartbroken, but she did not move out of the house. She was also partially mad at Laura for having an affair with me, but it was nothing compared to how mad she was with me. This incident alone changed everything. Emily became colder to me, and any conversation we had led to was just her yelling at me, calling me terrible names. I tried my best to prove to her that I would never have an affair with Laura or anybody else. I even went as far as telling her that I never really liked Laura, hoping that she would believe me, but of course she did not. When things got out of hand, I suggested that Emily and I met a marriage counselor, and after she reluctantly agreed, we did. I had so much faith in the counseling, and I believed it would work, but it did not do so much, because everything Emily expressed in the course of the counseling showed that she could never trust me again, and she hated me for having an affair with Laura. She also said that I turned her into an object of gossip inside of the neighborhood. Speaking of neighbors, Laura succeeded in poisoning everyone's mind towards me. My neighbors that were once warm and receptive suddenly turned cold, and we barely had a conversation. We even noticed that Laura was stalking us in the course of going to the counseling sessions, and when I brought it up to Emily's notice, she just stopped joining me, and that was it. Emily's friends and my friends, on the other hand, weren't so supportive. Either they blamed me for lying and hurting Emily after all those years. I practically had nobody on my side. Laura, on the other hand, was suffering too. Emily cut her off and refused to take her call, so when she could no longer bear the distance and quietness from Emily, she came to me and confessed that she was the one behind the lies. She said she was responsible for the rumors, and she had gotten a burner phone to send me those anonymous messages. I wasn't even surprised, because I knew Laura was capable of doing all that. She also said she was the one who was putting pills in my brownies, and she hired somebody to take photos of us while I escorted her to the mall that day. Then, for the fake messages, she admitted that unlocking my phone with my fingerprint while I was asleep, and she used it to send messages to herself on WhatsApp. Then she'd change the dates and times on her phone to make it look like I sent all those messages on different days. I could not even believe that Laura could go as far as changing the dates and times on her phones to make it look like she actually received those messages on different days. I was so confused, angry and bitter at her for doing all of that to me, and when I asked her why, she just resolved in her heart to destroy my marriage. Laura said it was because she loved Emily. All this while, she deceived us and deceived the people around us to believe that she was just Emily's best friend. But no one knew that Laura was bisexual, and the reason she did all of that was because she loved Emily right from when they were teenagers. But because Emily did not know and did not even reciprocate her love, she vowed that if she did not have Emily, nobody would, not even me. And, as a bit of revenge, she made up her mind to tear us to pieces. The funny thing was, Laura did not have any issues with Emily being with me all these years. But the moment we mentioned that we were ready to have children, she became angry because she didn't want Emily to have kids and lead a normal family life. I could not believe my ears. I knew Laura was obsessed with Emily, but I could not believe she could go as far as moving close to us just to ruin the only opportunity that would make us happy and change our lives forever. At that moment, I did not know if I should have stayed mad at Laura for trying to ruin my marriage or at Emily for not believing me after being married to each other for 6 years. To prove that I was innocent, I asked Laura to tell Emily the same thing that she had told me, and when Emily returned home, I called Laura to come over and tell her the same thing she told me. When Laura came over, she was in tears as she explained everything to Emily. Emily was shocked to hear all Laura had done, and instead of being mad at Laura like I expected, she hugged Laura, and the two of them started crying together. When this happened, I was glad that I could finally get back to the way it was with Emily and me. But I was wrong again. Emily's attitude towards me did not get better. Instead, it got increasingly worse. She became closer to Laura and even slept over at her place sometimes, while she ignored me and continued to act cold towards me. I didn't really understand why, until I confronted her and I found out that she blamed me for the way that Laura acted. She said it was my fault that Laura felt alone, and I knew Laura had no other friend aside from her, yet I hated Laura. None of that made sense to me. Yes, I hated Laura. She was one of those sneaky women that would manipulate you to do something for her, but she'd make you think that you were doing it for yourself, and I still don't get how other people cannot see through her deceit and pretense. After weeks of trying to make things get back to the way it was, it proved futile. I bumped into Emily's stepmother, Olivia, right there at the gas station, and I asked her if I could come and see her so she could help me talk to Emily. Emily's stepmom, Olivia, she was young as well. She married Emily's father when she was 25 years of age, and after he passed away, she didn't remarry. That same weekend, I visited Olivia at her house and I explained everything that's been going on between Emily and me. It was really surprising to find out that Emily did not tell her, especially since they've had a great relationship, and after Olivia heard the story, she believed me. Honestly, it felt good to have at least one person to finally believe me when my wife, friends, and neighbors simply did not. I begged her to help me talk to Emily, and when she tried, Emily lashed out on her and told Olivia that it was none of her business. Olivia also admitted that she never liked Laura one bit. There was always something shady about her, and she was not surprised Laura did all of that, so she could be right there with Emily. Since trying to talk to Emily did not work, Olivia and I became friends during that phase of my life. She was the only person that stood by me, and I can't even explain how it felt to have that one person who, well, has your back. Gradually, Olivia and I became close, and she'd always reached out to find out how things were going between Emily and me. Whenever Emily pushed me away, Olivia was always there to open her door and her arms. I don't even know how it happened, but I fell in love with Olivia. My mother-in-law, as of the time I fell in love with her, nothing was going on between us, but that changed after we got intimate one afternoon. All this while, I didn't know that Olivia liked me too. She had been crushing on me, but she accepted the fact that we could never be together because of Emily. It did not just end there. We continued to get intimate, and after a couple of weeks, she got pregnant for me. I know, I'm no saint, and it was wrong of me to sleep with my young and beautiful mother-in-law, but when she told me she was pregnant, I was the happiest man on this earth. I knew the news of her pregnancy would ruin whatever was left of my marriage with Emily. But hey, I guess you could say there's nothing I could have done. I tried everything possible to get Emily back, but after she told me she was not going to leave her relationship of almost 3 decades for a marriage of 6 years, I knew it would be difficult to get her to go back to the happy couple that we were. Also, I was tired of begging her every day. I was exhausted, and I knew I didn't want to keep begging her for the rest of my life while I was there just having an affair with Olivia. Emily was not aware of this because she was too engrossed in spending time with Laura, ensuring her that they'd be friends forever. I knew Emily would be hurt when she found out, but I did not expect her to come to me and ask for my forgiveness after she told Laura she could not love her the way she wanted. I remember it like it was yesterday. The day Emily called me and asked to see me. I was at Olivia's house, so when she called, I asked her to come over. I was also prepared to break the news to her so we could go our separate ways, and initially, when she called me, I thought she wanted to talk about divorce, because the conversation we had on the phone, it was the longest thing she had said to me in weeks. When Emily eventually came to Olivia's house, she did not know Olivia was pregnant because her baby bump was not visible yet. The moment she saw me, she dropped down to her knees and began to beg for my forgiveness. She wanted me to forgive her for not believing me, and she said she told Laura they could never be lovers because she loved Laura as a sister, not romantically. Then she asked me to come home with her so we could go back to the way we used to be, but it's too late. I already made up my mind, and I had enough of the emotional torture I got from her. I didn't want to be with a spouse who would believe outsiders instead of our trust, our bond. In the same way she told me to face that she would not leave her relationship of almost 30 years for me. I also told her to face that I've fallen out of love with her. Olivia is pregnant with my child. I said it. When she heard that, she flipped from the remorseful Emily to that angry Emily. She didn't believe me at first, but after Olivia showed her the visible pregnancy line on her tummy, she began to call me all sorts of names, and she tried to attack Olivia for snatching her husband away. She said all forms of crazy things to me, and she even said that Laura was right about me. And that's why she didn't want to have a child with me. If she had said just that, I would not have been pained. But she went ahead to say that she had gotten pregnant for me in our 2nd year of marriage. But she lost it because she did not think I was man enough to be the father of her child. I was so upset. I almost slapped her. But I'm glad Olivia there. She restrained me. I kicked her out of Olivia's house, and at that moment I was glad Laura separated the both of us. I tried to remove the whole thought of her just hurting our baby because of her friend's perception about me out of my head, and I must confess it took me a very long time. There was no asking if I would divorce Emily or not. It was obvious. I did. Shortly after we fell apart at Olivia's apartment, I contacted a lawyer, and he helped me processing some divorce papers. I moved out of our home and moved into Olivia's house. While I was trying to move out, Laura's husband came to help, and he also apologized on behalf of Laura. He said he recently found out what happened, and he was also processing his divorce papers for Laura. In the end, well, Laura, she lost it all. She lost Emily. She lost her husband. Emily returned to her parents' house after our divorce, and Olivia gave birth to a healthy baby boy. We named him Ethan, and when Ethan was 1 year of age, we got married on his birthday. Now, we are just out here living a happy life, and most times I remember Emily, but I'd still choose Olivia any day of the week over and over and over. Because I don't want to be with a spouse whose trust in me is easily shaken. I'll just tell you guys right now, in the comment section, they were ripping apart OP's, well, now ex-wife. And a lot of people were happy that he moved on, saying, hey, you deserved more than this and your wife was never there for you. And they also thought it was pretty crazy how once OP decides to be with another person, how now all of a sudden she wants to care. So guys, I want to ask you, what do you think of this story? What do you make of it? What would you have done differently if you were in OP's position and you were going through this nightmare? I would love to hear from you guys. My name's Mr. Reddito. I animate and narrate stories daily, so stop on by, see what stories we're up to for the day. And if you want more, make sure you subscribe. Guys, I'll see you in the next one. I'll see ya.